Our film begins with two paramedics, who swelled up, in an accident, in which Watermelons and Argod were injured. His house, and we will see his girlfriend, whose name is Fanny, who is going to work, and who is going to shifts in hospitals, and Benji are going back. Fertility or not, and this is because they are trying to leave behind for a while and do not know, and he tells her that he is sure that the problem is his, so the technician is annoyed with him, and in the end he agrees to do the tests in order to reconcile her. And she goes back to her job. And he goes to sleep. But the voice of the dog that belongs to one of his neighbors named Vishti. It bothers him and wakes him up from his sleep. And he goes to the next day to do the tests, and he knows that the problem of the background is his. But the doctor says to Onkil that they can do artificial insemination. This is very possible, and he tried to search for himself in the same thing, and with regard to him in himself, and with regard to himself, and with regard to himself, and is rejecting. They say that she has a study next to her job, and this is because she would like her job very much and decided to study dog psychology. So he left her studies and told her that the dogs had no feelings at all, and asked him where and how to take a shower, and he hears the mobile and sees that it is a message from a person named Roberto. Will be a registered technician with a colleague in her studies, and one day he will go to work and a sign comes to them that there is a Haddison nearby, and Angel and Ricard go and they take one of the injured in the ambulance, and I go with him to do first aid, and his friend Ricardo remains the one who drives, and suddenly the patient suffers convulsions. So he has to Ricardo is walking faster until he sells a Hades and turns the ambulance with them, and then we see Uncle after the accident caught his leg and forced him to use a wheelchair. Unlike Ricardo, who got out of the steepness, his grades narrowed and he is used to after the accident. I do everything for him and give him the medicine and tell him she goes down because she has lectures, and then turns on another mobile and returns and tells him that it is the one who calls and answers him. She tells him that Roberto is her colleague, so he asks her if he makes her two close friends for them. So she feels that he is suspicious of her and says that Roberto remains her classmate, not that he helps her, and writes to her what is missing. When you fall short and go down again, and Siba Unkil sitting alone. An angel begins to go around in a way that he knows how to spy on another mobile, and this is because he will doubt it and feel that there is a need between Roberto, and then he goes to a physiotherapy session and works in a humiliating way with the nurse who helps him, and he finishes and returns home. He is surprised that Ricardo is coming to visit him. The house is struggling, carrying and expelling the house. But they have a sexual intercourse project, and she must go, and he asks her to go down to get him ice cream from the supermarket before she walks. So she goes down again and leaves all her needs at home, and I will be able to do this so that he takes her mobile and downloads an intercourse app. You don't answer him, because his requests are from below. He downloads the application and goes back to work, and Angel begins to spy on everything you do, and at night he hears the sound of the dogs barking from the next day. Vishti, and they say the dog does not like to sit alone. As soon as he goes to visit his wife, the hospital starts the dog doing a shower, but he puts a corset on him, and Bisebo, and he walks, and time comes and he comes and says it's lunchtime, and says to his wife, it is much better than the first, and that soon he may feel his leg again, but I do not care about what he says. So he asks her to enter if there is anything that bothers her, and she responds to him and tells him that she is offered training in a veterinary clinic, but she has to reduce her working hours and therefore the salary will be reduced. So he feels that it is not she thinks other than herself, and this is because Uncle does not work now. There is no other source of income other than her job, and she tries to defend herself and tells him that she will not be able to do everything at home alone, and Angel begins to feel that he is a burden on her, and then she goes to Sonia for her work and leaves him and wakes up at dawn. He feels severe pain and turns to the house next to him, but he does not find him, and he tries to call because he finds her phone is switched off, so he enters the house in the kitchen and finds a box on the shelf. So he takes it and then hides it and comes back from her work and finds that she is sitting waiting for her and blaming her that she forgot to answer him the house and also the convoy of her phone. She answers him. She tells him that the mobile has been disconnected, and tells him that she is leaving a box of housing in the kitchen shelf, and she enters to show it to him, but he hides it so that he feels that it is short with him, and I do not know her, so she apologizes to him, because she goes to the pharmacy to bring him another box of painkillers, and the next day he puts pins in a piece of meat and goes down to put them to the dog of his neighbor, and as soon as the dog eats it, he dies and returns to his house and starts to get active on other calls and hears her while she is talking to a friend of hers and tells her that she cannot bear to live with Unkla and advises her that she will leave him and stop letting him make it another monster. But I respond to her and tell her that she is not able to leave him in these times. And yet, you don't know how to deal with him. She returns home and is surprised to find that she prepares her favorite food and asks her to wear the dress that he brought her before as a gift. And when he eats, he apologizes to her for having changed his way with her recently and tells her that he will try to keep it better, that he will find a room for her in the apartment so that she can study in it and study what she loves. And then enter the Onkil Ashan Ithama. When I finish a base in the hall and a message comes to her on her phone, But she hears the echo of a voice coming from the room at the same time that she received the message, and she enters again to see where the sound is coming from. She is surprised when a voice and video watch her, and quickly finds out what she needs, and decides that she is leaving and walking, and Ankil comes out of the bathroom. At the children's supply store, he understands that he is coming back from his friend, and this bothers him more and goes to his house, but he comes back another day and goes to talk to her. But she tells him that she does not want to know him again, so he apologizes to her and tries to sympathize with her and tells her that she really should have left him because she deserves better than him. He tells her that he is also not capable of his illness and that he has given up, and promises her that she will not see him again, and bids her farewell and walks, and it is difficult for her. When she travels, she agrees again, and she looks with him, and he says to her, how did she forget him so quickly? Whoever saw her in my hand, she had a hypnotic syringe, and technical superiority after a while, and you find myself sitting in front of her, and she discovers that he is sufficiently in bed and she tries to scream, but I turn on the music in a loud voice to ensure that no one hears her voice and goes out and locks the door on her and goes in and takes her phone and finds a message from the card and reassures her. So he responds, I go to him as if I am dying, and he tells him that she wants to stay away from him and that she decided to get rid of the child, and he takes the mobile phone and throws it into the sea and goes back to the house and removes the tie around us. But after you promised him that she would not scream at me, he told her that he had met Ricardo today and knew that they were waiting for a child, so she would devote herself to someone who could hear her and would come back and wrap the bandage around her bug, and I would give her a sleeping injection and walk. He knocks on the door at the entrance, and he will complain about the loud sound of hardship, so he responds to him and tells him that he endured the sound of a dog for months and he could not stand the sound of music for one day, so he replied to him and said that the sound of the dog was forced from him because he could not take the dog to the hospital with his wife, but now he has lost his wife and the dog and he doesn't care. I don't care. I don't care. I think he says anything to the man. So, he says to him, she's saved. He left him for months. But he says that he saw them for how many days they entered the house together, so he says that she came to take the rest of her needs and walked, and they asked, the sound of the chicks that were out from him. Angel tells him that he had a girl of the night with him, but he was uncovered. He tells him, and on the day of Asna, he returns from the physiotherapy session. He finds Ricardo waiting under his house, and Ricardo confesses that he was related to him and Fanny, and asks him if he knows where she is because he does not know where he is because he does not know how to get to her. He has a day left. But Uncle tells him that he has not met her for a long time, and he argues that he is tired and must go and excel in my eyes, and you find Uncle sitting next to her and discovering that it is fruit in the end, but she becomes groggy when she finds herself unable to move her legs and asks what he did in it. So he tells her, Angel, that this is just a situation, so she doesn't try to run away, and he plays music, and he lets her move in front of him, and she tries again to open the door, but she finds a caravan with the key, and then finds Angel that Ricardo has sold him many messages. The police go to Angel Fanny and bring her dinner and tell her that he thought that they would smell the child if he was a boy, and if she was going to leave her, she would choose the name she liked, so she takes advantage of the opportunity that she is not tied up and hits him with a whistle on the head and tries to escape, but Angel follows her and I have a syringe that paralyzes her movement. At the same time, he knocks on the door, he will be Vishti, and he tells him that he heard another scream and that he is sure that it is another voice, so he denies Uncle and asks him in my ear about the cause of the blood in his head. So he asks him to enter and see himself, and enters and sees another thrown on the ground, and he is going to report to the police, but he stabs him in the body. He stabs him with a knife and calls a friend of mine named Fermin and asks him to come home to him to take the body and clean its place in exchange for a sum of money. And then Angel knows that Ricardo has informed the police of Fanny's disappearance, and Ricardo tells the police that I sent him a message before she disappeared. Sure, it wasn't from her, so he goes to Ricardo's house and kills him with a cup of wine and drinks it for him and leaves him beside him in drugs and alcohol because the police think that he died of an extra dose of drugs. And then he goes to his house and is surprised that two officers come to him and ask him about me, and he will leave a technical locker in the room because you don't make any sound. So he tells them, Angel, that the last time he saw her was a week ago. She went to him to say goodbye to him, and he said that she was traveling to France, and they asked the officer if he knew about her relationship with Ricardo. She walks because if she prefers that, she and the fetus will die, but Ankil asks her to use the trolley and go out to the hall because he prepares her for food, and she is surprised that he has new needs for the child. She enters to take a shower and asks him to come out and leaves her alone in the bathroom and turns on the water so that he understands that she is really taking a bath, but she steals a sharp instrument and gets stimulated with it, and at night he comes out to go to the pharmacy and leave it a bandage and trying to loosen itself with a sharp instrument and actually succeeds. She opens the door and gets out, but she is surprised when she comes out of the elevator and runs on her, and she tries again to escape from him, and they prefer both of them to crawl behind each other on the stairs, and she will be mortal. The latter, and then we see Uncle in the hospital and he is paralyzed and unable to speak. He tells the doctor that he is lucky because his girlfriend brought him to the hospital, and he leaves them and walks, and she will finish a pause next to Uncle and tell him that she is the one who will take care of him after that, and we know that I intend to take revenge on Uncle after he remains helpless and will do it as just as he did.